Yeah. I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Recording in progress.
All set, okay. Well, welcome to the Port Planning Board meeting of November 16th. And it is a hybrid meeting via Zoom and in person. And let's see, the information on how to get in on Zoom or otherwise is on the website. There are a couple of public hearings. We will ask for people here in the audience first and then get anybody who might want to talk into the Zoom at a later time. Here's time for my usual advertisement. We lack a person on this board. We need someone from the community to volunteer to join us in the planning board. I mean, all of us have been here for quite a while, I realize, but you know, it's time to volunteer. Anyhow, attendance, looks like Scott is not here, although I believe he will be. So, but other than that, the rest of us are all here. So, looks like we're getting late-breaking changes to the minutes, and maybe we're better off waiting till next week.
Yeah, I would like to move to postpone approval of the minutes till next week. I had several comments.
I'll second that.
Fine. Okay, I don't know if we have to take a vote. No, we'll take a vote as long as we've got it moved and seconded, so. Ed?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Nina, Tom? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Guess what? So Scott, Joseph, you
Yeah.
get the vote.
That's right.
That's a deal. Okay, which brings us to Woodland Drive, item 220902, Duncan McDougal, Coastal Creations is the agent. So, initially, we'll want to go over a little bit and then open it up to a public hearing.
Sure.
So, I guess, since I'm case manager, I guess I can go first.
Yes.
Okay. For your final, which has to come whatever the, says 30 days or something after this meeting, or after the approval. The final, I'd like to see something I'd like to see the subdivision changed to just say, instead of just saying Woodside Road, which names all of the things, I would call it Lot 2 Woodside Road, and then note somewhere that this is a minor modification to a prior subdivision plan, which is Kennebunkport Seashore Company, approved June 25th, 1980, and recorded in York County Registry of Deeds, Book 110, page 3, which I swiped out of a letter that I think one of your attorneys sent, so
Yeah, okay.
you should be able to find it. But we want that, it is a major revision because of the way our regulations are written, since it creates an extra lot. But that doesn't, it is limited to what since it's a mod to an existing, it's a little bit easier. Anyhow, there were a collection of waivers, and I wanted to go through the waiver list with the crowd here and make sure everybody's happy with them. First one is the high-intensity soil survey. Okay, which I believe we said was
Not required.
not required. It's required by the thing.
No,
so
no,
have to
but we
say
could waive that
we're
requirement.
gonna waive it.
We don't believe it's needed
The
here.
second one was the hydrologic study, which since your lots are big, you don't need it. Says so in the suburb. Tree survey is the next one. And the way you worded it is that the trees were pre-removed before you started working.
Correct.
So we had asked perhaps that you talk to the shade tree committee.
For the trees that are at the end of Woodland.
Drive coming onto South Main where you might want to trim, that was a recommendation. Basically, that you talk to the tree warden and make sure there are no problems, there are no issues. So, that's not part of the waiver system.
No, not part, well, no.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
As
part
far
of the
as
application.
this, the tree survey, we're waiving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Then there's an open space requirement, which this is been around since 1980. I don't think we're going to add open space to it particularly, so.
No, and it was before the change.
Before the requirement was even in there. Traffic study, you're adding one car, one or two cars because of the second lot, so I don't think I think that's perfectly normal waive. One question that I had when I was reading through things was the stormwater management plan.
Yes.
Do we need one?
So that's up to the board whether or not you deem that
I
that's,
know that's what it was going to say. Anyway,
right, whether or not you deem that that's, that that's necessary. Where the road is, you have a previous approval on the road, where, it was done, without a stormwater management plan. That's up to you all to decide. Nothing has changed as it relates to the road. That's really specifically what you're looking for. in terms of the road, and all of those drainage patterns are established. So that's, I think that's up to the board whether or not you want to have, whether or not you want to have some, stormwater looked at for that property.
So
But,
I think the general feeling here is that we're good on the waiver on that guy. So the only other one was the erosion and sedimentation, and you said you're going to do, it was sort of in your plan that you're going to do standard erosion and sedimentation stuff.
Correct, yeah. Our excavator is DEP approved for the erosion work.
Okay, good, so that's really in the plan, that doesn't need a, maybe in your submission of the plan, you could just put a little information, add a little information about what he's intending to do in terms of erosion.
Okay.
so what you typically wind up seeing, so if you think of a new subdivision application, really what you're seeing is you're seeing that typical page, that includes, here are the methods under which, erosion control measures are put into place, and so what they'll do is they'll give a number of specific or general practices
Yeah.
that they utilize, and, that's what you typically see on a plan.
Right, so I
for
don't
that.
think, we're not gonna waive that one, but it looks like it's a fairly easy thing for you to add,
Okay.
okay? So, that's, I think, all I had. Anyone else have?
So could I just recap? So the only waivers that we're expecting are the high-intensity soil survey,
Yep,
the tree study, and the traffic study. Everything else is either not required or is going to be included as a normal part of the final plan submission, right?
well, I think.
It's just three waivers.
That's what we said last week.
Yeah, that's
right,
what we
at the
said last week,
meeting.
there's 3 waivers last week.
Yeah.
So you're adding another waiver?
Well, I wanna know what I'm gonna put in the letter, so let's get it right.
Yeah.
The erosion
So-
control one was because we weren't adding any more than 5% of the overall area of the subdivision by adding driveways or roofs or overhangs or decks.
Good.
5% of the whole, so it was decided last meeting that that one wasn't needed either,
Right.
Okay.
from my notes here from 2 weeks ago.
So we agree we don't need a stormwater management plan, so they don't need a waiver. The hydrologic study is not
I
required.
think, well, some people just said we did need a waiver on the stormwater.
So, yes, so you don't need the hydrogeologic because it's not applicable based on the size of the lots.
Got it, yeah.
Right, the
Right.
stormwater would be a waiver.
Okay, so that'd be a 4th waiver,
Right, so it's,
okay?
right, and the erosion is gonna be in the plan, so that's not a waiver, so it's total. of
Four waivers,
4 waivers. Yep,
okay.
okay, so, I guess I will, open up the public hearing on this guy,
And hang on, so just one point of clarification. So we're still on the preliminary application.
Yes.
So what we're doing is we're giving advice to the applicant for what needs to be in the final application.
Correct.
Okay, good, thank you.
That's what this is, the letter now.
Okay.
You know, I've
Great.
got it two-thirds
Okay.
written, so it's not-
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
There was some talk, I believe it was Edward asked about moving it to final, and Warner was going to go back and look at the subregs.
Subregs
Right.
are fairly specific,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, the
Okay.
subregs are pretty specific in that,
Okay.
because there's additional lot being created, that it follows prelim and final. We did talk a little bit about, and this is more of a board discussion outside of the scope of an application, about whether or not you want to redefine what is minor, and so that's a future discussion that the board can
I
have.
think it's a good discussion
Yep.
to
Yeah.
have.
Tom, perhaps after the end of this meeting, we could talk about when we would schedule that
Yeah.
discussion, because, I think it merits.
Yep. Yeah,
We-
we
we could
also
maybe
have
be
to
more
change
efficient.
we have our meetings are defined in the document also out there that needs to get changed. So.
And
there's
quite
two
honestly,
things.
we can, I mean, we can talk about that later, but you can actually get rid of that if you want, I mean, that's, it's spelled out in the subregs, but I don't know that you need to say, like, our meetings are gonna start at such and such a time. It's also, it's rehashed in
Yeah.
your separate, planning board policies.
Right, that's, I want to change both
Yeah.
the documents were responsible.
I think you could just flat out strike it out of the subregs. I think it's
No, I think
redundant.
that's a great idea.
Yep. Just have it in your, in your policies document for how you run your meetings.
Yes. But as far as you are concerned, we will require you to come back with a final, which is going to look a lot like the preliminary. And
And there will be another public hearing.
and then there'll be a second public hearing, but we'll try to have the finding of facts all set so that when we have the second public hearing, we will fully approve the thing.
Okay.
So at that time, have your if he needs to get something signed, it's best to have it with him that time.
That's right.
Okay, so now, if I may,
Yes.
I'm going to open up the public hearing. So anybody here would like to speak on this Lot B Woodland Road, Woodland Drive?
Do you want people to be able to come up here?
Yeah.
So, hearing nobody from in here,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We do have an audience member.
Yes, so if there's an audience member who wishes to speak on this, I would please invite them to raise their hand and come into the talk.
Yeah. Jennifer?
Hi, am I being invited to speak? Sorry, I'm having a little trouble understanding the format here on Zoom meeting.
No, very vaguely. We're having trouble hearing you.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yeah. Kind of weird, but yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm zooming in from a laptop and I guess the microphone isn't, I'm not exactly sure where the microphone is on this, but thank you all for the opportunity to address this board. My name's Stuart Munson, and my family has owned the house on the corner of South Main and Woodland Avenue for generations. I grew up there, saw movies at the New York Theater, participated in dump parades, and have been there for quite a long time. As a longtime homeowner, I would like to request that you consider denying this application for subdivision on the grounds that it will cause current homeowners undue financial hardship and will primarily benefit transient outside developers. My family has a parking lot on the side of our home that will be eliminated when Woodland Avenue is widened to 20 feet. We've used this parking lot beside our home for decades. My father planted the trees that provide a barrier between our home and Woodland Avenue about 20 years ago. Subdividing the lots down Woodland Avenue will trigger a requirement to widen Woodland Avenue from 16 to 20 feet, which will eliminate most of our parking lot. This process has actually already begun. The additional lot that is being requested to be created has already been cleared in anticipation of this, and Woodland Avenue is being widened. The last time I walked up there, I could see all of that. Widening Woodland Avenue at South Main Street will create a financial hardship to my family and possibly to the environment. When the parking lot on the side of our home that we've been using for generations is lost, we'll be forced to relocate it to the back of our house. The land behind the house is really pretty mushy and probably considered wetlands. Consequently, moving that parking lot is going to require special permitting, potentially a loss of some wetlands, and very probably will be really expensive to do as a result of those two reasons. My understanding is that this subdivision request is for an exception to current zoning. So unless there's a significant benefit to the town, I would request that you would consider denying this subdivision request on the basis that it benefits primarily, out-of-town developers at the cost of current homeowners. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak and for considering my request, and thank you so much for your service on this board. I have served on boards like it, and I know that it's very time-consuming and a generally thankless job, so thank you so much for your service on this, and be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, we had a hard time understanding it, sort of,
I understood the financial hardship because of the replacement of the driveway, the existing driveway that they put the planting in, and then also, I'm not certain what the exception to the zoning is, because I think it's residential, and
Yeah, my understanding is that they're requesting an additional, or a lot be subdivided, permission to subdivide a lot. And my understanding is that's what's going to trigger a requirement to widen the road. So unless there's a benefit to the town of granting a subdivision, which is an exception to existing lots, I guess lots size, or maybe zoning is the incorrect word. But unless there's a benefit to the town to create, to allow this exception, I would argue that it's hurting current residents and not really benefiting the town.
I'm not sure I understand that. This already is a subdivision.
yeah, it was created in 1980, the subdivision.
Well, they're
Your
asking
house
for
is
an
part of
extra
it.
lot, you're requesting an additional lot, which is, I mean, if they could do this by right, they would be able to, they wouldn't be petitioning you for anything, isn't that correct? Or maybe I'm misunderstanding this, I don't know.
So, yeah, so the proposed lot, meets with the zoning size requirements for the town of Kennebunkport zoning. So the planning board here manages a process. It manages a process in which previously approved subdivisions may come before the board and request a modification, which is what this is. If this property were not part of a previously approved subdivision, it would follow just the direct subdivision laws that are set out in state statute, which would allow for a division once every 5 years. So there's, it's a pretty standard process, and it's something that that communities in Maine see on a regular basis.
Okay.
regarding the, sorry.
Yep, sorry.
George? Regarding the driveway, it was, I'll ask Duncan as well. My understanding was, I can't find the deed in front of me or from the original subdivision, I apologize.
So
My
I'll just direct
understanding
the
was
board.
it was 40 feet there, and that their driveway was actually on part of the...
That's correct.
It's not a right-of-way, it's actually the property for Woodlawn, for
That's
that
correct.
subdivision.
Yep, and one of the surveys in your packet has, they found one of the property pins for Woodland Drive in the middle of his driveway, so they built this driveway in other people's property. And we'd already gone over this, we have permission to move those arborvitaes some. We told him we weren't going to take the whole space, and that we would work with him on replanting them once everything was finished. And also, they have all listed 3 other lots in the subdivision for sale now. So no matter, once you trigger that third buildable lot, or when a third permit is pulled, that road has to be widened to the 20 feet.
And the property owns for the, I don't know who owns it, there's no homeowners association, but the subdivision has 40 feet of property, it's not right-of-way.
Correct. All the properties, there are 5 lots in that, that have deeded use of that Woodland Drive in their deeds.
Woodland is 40 feet wide and currently 16 feet are paved, roughly?
It's 18 or 20.
Is currently paved?
Yep, at that area, and then where his pin was found.
When I measured it, it looked like 16 feet and not 20 that were paved.
No, but what I was getting at, my question
If you
was,
look on this map that I have in your packet, it shows.
typically, some portion, the center portion of the road is paved, and then the road extends beyond that. There's a side of the road that's outside of the paved area.
Correct.
And what I'm hearing is that's a 40-foot width. The center 16 or 18 feet are paved at that point.
Yep.
There's some discussion about whether it's 16 or 18. I don't think that's that important.
Right. You can, on the survey from Lower Village Survey, you can see the pins here in this grassy, rocky area, probably 6 feet to the pavement, and then the pin for the other edge is here in the middle of his driveway.
Right. So are you asking him to remove his driveway? Is that what I'm?
No?
No?
We just needed to move all the shrubbery that was
Yeah.
pushed, and we were going to place it appropriately once we had that road paved to whatever
Okay.
the town decided we needed.
Let me get my question out. I'm
I'm
still leading up to trying to understand the argument, and there is a little bit of difficulty with the audio system here. I
Yeah.
thought I heard the gentleman say that he has been parking on his neighbor's land for 10 or 15 years, and because of that, he thinks you should let him continue to do that, and you shouldn't put the road there. I'm having a hard time grasping that argument, but is that in fact the argument?
So, yeah, what I'm saying is that if this modification is granted, then Woodland Avenue is going to have to be widened from its current 16 feet of paved to 20 feet of paved.
Right.
Which is going to eliminate all of this arborvitae row that we have in our retaining wall, and force us to move where it says paved driveway on this diagram. That's been our parking lot ever since I was a kid, and we'll then lose that, and we'll have to park our cars back behind the house and create some kind of a parking lot back behind the house that's in, I think, what's currently a wetland. So I don't understand how, if this Woodland Avenue is widened, as will be required, how the developer is going to replace our arborvitae, because they're going to be paved.
So I'm going to try to stick with my question here, which is
Okay.
your argument. For example, if this lot were not subdivided, but instead one of the other owners of the other 3 or 4 lots were to come in and put a house there, that road would have to be widened. Soon as there's 3 lots that are using the road, the town requires that to be a 20-foot wide road. That shouldn't be a problem. The development was approved that way with a 40-foot road, of which the center could be paved. So that was apparently foreseen at that time, that the subdivision would be able to be used. Everybody would be able to put a house on their lot and still meet the town requirements. I think by arbitrarily deciding that house can't go on this particular lot, I think that doesn't really solve your problem. At some point, it was a given that road was going to go to 20 feet paved, and your ability to use it as a parking lot, even though it was your neighbor's property, was going to be jeopardized. That's happening now. And I have a hard time saying you're rightly concerned that this is going to be a financial hardship, but consider the financial hardship of the people that own the property along Woodland Drive. Could the board arbitrarily say to them, I'm sorry, you can't build homes there because your neighbor is wants to park his car up next to his house. It just, the argument is not persuasive.
Okay. Well, I would ask that you would consider, or see if there's some way that we could put the road in there that might not, totally eliminate our driveway. I don't know if that's possible to do, but we would certainly appreciate it if you could consider it.
I think you must be talking to the developer at this point, not the board. We're not empowered or in a position to do that.
Yeah, I'm not a developer. I don't know how all of this works. I'm just seeing how it's going to affect the house that I've lived in for, all my life. So, if there isn't anything I can do, I understand that. I didn't realize that was the case.
When we went to survey this, we did a site walk, and we saw that the arborvitae that you just discussed were in fact partially removed because of the road was going to go there. And at least what we were told by the developer was that there was an agreement to relocate those. And I'm struggling now to understand who that agreement was with.
And we really, really appreciate the concession that the developer has made to put those back. But if once this modification is done and and Woodland Avenue is widened to 20 feet, that's going to take that Arbor Vitae row out. It's not going to be, there's no point in, I don't understand why they would replace it if they're just going to rip it out and pave it.
I think there's some confusion, in my part at least, as to where those
There might be. I may well be misunderstanding this, so if I am, please let me know, and my apologies for wasting your time, but my understanding was that Woodland Avenue is in the process of being widened from 16 to 20 feet because of the additional house that's going in there, and that doing so with my tape measure is going to take out, that whole Arbor Vitae row. Now, if I'm incorrect about that, I apologize for my misunderstanding.
I think that's correct, but what the board has to look at is the fact that driveway and the Arbor Vitae are not on your property. They're on the Woodlawn Drive property, that 40-foot strip they have. So it's not on your property.
And that this action that we're taking here, allowing the lot to be subdivided, is not the decision point in any case of whether the road were to be required to be widened. It was inevitable.
And we have our email chain between you and I and our phone conversations that we had back in either June or July, where once you agreed, and I have it in the email chain, which I can print for next meeting, but you and I had talked, and we would move those arborvitae so we could get our trucks in there, and then once the town decided how wide this road needs to be, then we would make it that, and we would put the arborvitae to the side of that road to help you block, but you were going to lose some of your driveway.
Duncan, there may be opportunity, and this will just make a suggestion, for you all and the Munsons to get together to look at just putting together a potential driveway access right there off of Woodlawn. Widen it, everything out, and then just put in a driveway, that gives them, a similar amount of parking area.
And as soon as we know how wide we need to make that road, we can then appropriately work with, and that's all in a
and it's
numerous email chain.
May not be parallel, it may not be parallel to the road, maybe just be something
It may be longer, you might be more tandem.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. We just, anything that we can do to sort of help us with this situation, we would really appreciate. And again, I want to commend and extend my appreciation to the developer for helping us moving with this, the Arbor Vitae road. And I apologize, my understanding was that the road was automatically going to need to be widened and that it was just going to all get paved over. So, which is what I was told by one of my neighbors. So, I apologize for the confusion. And yeah, if there's any help we can get figuring out how to, where we can put our cars, minimizing the effect to any wetlands down there would be hugely appreciated.
Yeah, and we had left a large number of those arborvitae because you had renters
Yeah.
this summer, and that us going in and out of the road would still be sort of blocked. But once
Yep.
we know how wide we have to make the road, then we'll replace them and work with you towards either more of a
Okay.
tandem driveway or wider, whatever we can accommodate there.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. So,
Can I just,
do we have other,
I want to ask Duncan
Anyone
a
else?
question. I'm sorry.
okay, so.
You just said, once it's decided how wide the road has to be. I thought at the previous meeting, you had said, I'm going to make it 20 feet, and everybody had agreed
Right,
to it.
at the time, we
Has
had
that
no idea
changed?
what, nope, we didn't, when we initially started this.
Oh, yeah.
Back in May,
But-
we had
but
no
now,
idea.
Now,
Is there any question about it
No,
now?
20 feet
It's
is
20
correct.
feet.
Yep.
So at this point, if you decide you're going to have another discussion with this gentleman who was just
Yes.
speaking, I don't think there's any more variables. And I think at the final, we'd be happy to look at whatever you come up with.
Okay.
If you can do something within reason, maybe.
It's not
Okay.
really within the purview of the planning board, though. It's really an agreement between the two of them, because
Yeah,
the
you're right.
subdivision owns that width of the road.
Understood.
Yeah, and I can include
Okay.
Mr. Munson and my's email chains and phone texts and all that stuff that we've.
I don't
we've
think we
already
need
done.
any, we don't need that. We
just
don't
need you guys
want to
to
look
agree
at
that
it,
it's all
honestly.
fine.
Yeah,
But we are, we'll be here, and we have one more public hearing after you submit, the final report sometime first part of the year presumably. So,
do I reprint all the surveys and everything and send them out again? Is that how that works?
Yeah, we can discuss,
Okay.
we can talk about what that wants to look like.
Okay.
okay, so, in that case, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the preliminary plan so
Close the
that he
public
can
hearing.
proceed. And, so,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the preliminary plan.
I'll second that.
As long as
Okay.
we've closed the public hearing.
oh yes, I have to close the public hearing first. I'm closing the public hearing now.
Okay.
Okay, now we've reversed that, so.
Now,
Well,
go
There's a
ahead.
motion on the floor to approve the preliminary plan.
And I'll second that.
All right, and George, you're in favor?
Yes, I am.
In favor?
All right. Tom is in favor.
In favor.
Yes.
Okay, it is approved. Now, there's, I think, specific timelines of when when you're allowed to submit the final plan, and to work with those fine folks in code enforcement and getting the details.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Which brings us to item 221001, Kitty's Run. We have Mr. Copey? I mispronounced it last time.
That's it.
Okay,
Right.
good.
Good evening.
The floor is yours.
Okay, sure, I thought it was public
We
hearing.
get a description of it.
Yeah. My name is Chris Copey, and I represent the applicants Jamie and Phil Schuman. And we are seeking, we're seeking to add one more lot to the existing Kitty's Run, which was previously approved for 2 lots, and we're just seeking approval to split the second parcel into 2, thereby making it 3 lots, so servicing 3 lots with that road. I did inspect it, and the road, we determined that the road was built in accordance with the plan within the right-of-way. Yeah. Happy to answer any questions.
So, Kitty's, it's yours?
It's Ed's.
It's Ed's, why don't you start since it's yours?
Okay.
Okay.
just a couple clarifications with the application.
Sure.
Can you help me make sure I understand the contact information I've got to fill with a 7-digit telephone number? Is the area code 207? Is that what I'm to
Yep.
presume?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm having a hard time, want to make sure we can read the email contact. It's pschuman2, is that correct? Yes. pschuman2@gmail.com, and Jamie dot, and now I can't read that,
Sellers.
Sellers.
ER or AR?
ERS, thank you. Okay. A couple of other things, I think. Let me see. There is in the 2004 findings a letter that talks about the fire chief asking for a dry hydrant to be installed. Did that happen?
No, I don't believe so.
It says, due to the length of the driveway, I would request that a dry hydrant be installed in the wetland area near the proposed dwelling site or proposed wetland impact site number 2, subject to approval by Maine DEP, and there being sufficient water supply to allow for a hydrant.
We did meet the fire chief out there, and he did not mention that.
That was the former fire chief,
Yeah.
I think, Alan Moore.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
can tell you,
You
as a
think we're
general
okay?
rule, the town is moving away from the installation of those
Right.
types of hydrants.
I know there are maintenance problems.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, the town winds up owning and maintaining those, and unless
Okay.
there's a really good flow, of water, we've been moving away from the installation of any more of those.
So is this one of those cases where they'll have to put a sprinkler system in the house?
No, because that's a subdivision requirement, and this isn't a subdivision.
Well, as long as the fire chief is
long as the
okay
fire chief
with
is
carrying in
That's
water,
right.
then
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
then
not
we're fine.
actually, it's not actually a requirement in the road standards, it would have
I
been
understand, yeah.
just a, request from the chief at the time.
Okay.
for the dry hydrant.
Right.
Yes, no, I understand that. But all I'm concerned about is that the fire chief is comfortable. He's not presuming there's a dry hydrant there from
Correct.
before, and sounds like we're
That's
okay
right.
with that.
Yeah, no, I know Jay's has been up there, and
Okay. It also asked for some reason for police chief approval, and that isn't something we typically do, and nor did I see any
Now,
police chief
so
approval.
chief approval, is not something that would have been, chief approval or police approval is only done whenever we're dealing with entrances. So that would have been the original
yeah,
entrance
yeah.
requirement.
We're not changing that.
No.
No.
And that's,
I appreciate that. That makes sense. I hate it when I can't read my own writing. This is embarrassing here. No, I think we're good. I think that's all I had. Oh, yeah, that's what it says. It says remove. There was a request at the tail end of the last meeting about removing a condition from the previous findings that would normally just carry over, having to do with, what's the
Accessory
correct word?
apartments.
Accessory,
correct, the accessory apartments. Yep.
and I wanted to at least get the sense that the board, or maybe have the board vote on that. My thought would be that I have no problem at all removing that.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what change in the ordinance of the town I would refer to in our findings that would say this is why we removed it. That would be helpful.
I remember when.
Say whenever they were created as a permitted use, when ADUs were, previously, and it may have been in and around the time whenever this, was, when this road was being reviewed. Now, again, keep in mind, this road was being reviewed at the time because it had a wetland crossing. So that
Understood.
was the original reason why it was in front of, the board at the time. But I would reference the fact that, that ADUs now are a permitted use, akin to a single-family dwelling, So when you look at single-family dwelling as a use, it's presumed that, provided that you can meet the performance standards that you know, an ADU is it's a permitted use that
Right.
goes along with that
There's
lot.
nothing additional that's unique about this property that would require us to put a condition on it.
Correct.
It's going to be treated as any other application
All right,
for a permit.
yeah.
Okay.
That ADU thing went in sometime when I was here.
Okay.
I've been
No,
here
I-
12 years, so I'm not sure when exactly.
Yeah.
I think the logic of describing why we're changing it,
Yeah.
that'll be crisp enough.
But
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we made some significant changes in around, well, there were some that were in 2009, was when there were some major modifications made, and then we, made some further tweaks.
No, it's
along the
actually
way.
better, it's better for me to refer to it as what the difference is between now and then, rather than trying to tie it to a specific date.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the board on this Kitty's Run? No?
No.
Okay, in that
Is
case.
the turnaround finalized now?
No, we still haven't received the specs from the manufacturer of the truck yet. And I think that's, as we talked about the last time, we'd like to
Yeah.
just see that as that's a,
That'll be a condition.
So we'll just
at the
leave
end.
that as a condition, that
Right.
that is approved by
correct.
Right.
the
Yep,
fire
yeah,
chief and the code enforcement office.
Yeah.
Yep, it's fine. Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Any comments from the public? Here, don't see any hands raised?
No, there's no hands.
Then I'm going to close the public hearing. And yes, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve this.
I would approve that we approve this application. I would move.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor here.
In favor?
In favor?
Okay. So, we'll have the FOF next time, then, Ed?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. That brings us to item 22102, 37 Pier Road, Gordon Proc, permitting with Proc LLC agent.
Good evening. I'm just here again to represent Diane Broussard, formerly Cullen, for a pier replacement at 37 Pier Road in Kennebunkport. And it's just an exact replacement of this structure, which has been approved previously by the Department of DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, and the Marine Department of Resources for timing of the activity, so. Do you guys have any questions that I could probably answer, or not?
Start with you, George.
Hi, welcome back. I've got a couple of questions.
Certainly.
I noticed on a notation from the town office that the cottage is not going to be moved off of the property?
It's not, we're just gonna jack it up.
Okay.
And then put new posts and timbers underneath it for
Right underneath it,
supports.
okay.
And it'll all be supported, pinned and secured directly to ledge.
Okay, good enough. And you know how to do that, apparently.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
All right, well, good. And in terms of the application, got the letter from the DEP the other day.
Great.
Got the former finding of facts.
Nice.
And got the tax card. Still don't have a copy of the deed. So I've got,
Really? I did,
Isn't it?
it should be in the application for the permit by rule, which was sent to the code office.
It is. It was in the application for the permit by rule. So
okay,
there's a
then I will
deed in
locate
there.
it there.
Okay.
And in terms of the name, is it going to be Broussard or is it for Cullen?
I
Because-
think it should read Broussard,
Okay.
just to.
And I'll put
be
Cullen in
current.
parentheses.
Is that fine with you, Diane?
Because some of the legal documents have Cullen.
She'd like
Leave
it to
Cullen-
be just
I will leave
Broussard.
Cullen right out.
And that's Brassard?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. No more Cullen. That's all I've got.
Okay. Larry?
No comments. Nope. Yeah, well, it looks in pretty good shape, if you ask me.
Okay, I'm good with it.
I don't have any questions.
Ed?
All good.
Well, thank you for your time, I appreciate
Okay,
it.
now here's,
Thank you.
we're going to now have a public hearing. So I guess I will once again ask if anyone that's left here has any, wants to be heard. And are there any hands being raised?
No, they're not.
There are no hands being raised, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay, so what happens, let's get an approval, sorry.
I'd make a motion, we approve the application.
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll move this direction.
I'm in favor.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
Okay, it is now approved. We will, basically, next time, George there will read a finding of facts. You do not need to be present for
Okay.
the finding of facts.
Okay.
Someone eventually has to take, will collect the finding of facts after it's signed from April, like the next day or whenever she says it's available.
Okay.
That then takes it to the Registry of Deeds and does the final
Okay.
stuff then. But you don't need to actually be here
Okay.
2 weeks from now.
All right, well, thank you.
Not that we wouldn't love to
I
have
don't
it
know if I
anyway.
could, I don't think I could get here.
Okay,
But our plan will be to sign it at the meeting, the next meeting, correct?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
we
then
sign-
it would,
yeah,
and
that's the
then,
way
and then it will
works.
be available from April the next day.
Yep,
Well, thank you for all your time, I appreciate it.
okay,
Thank you.
very good. So the next meeting, next item is, next 3 items are findings of fact. So everybody get your sleeping cap on and
Hey,
This is electrifying. Few minutes coming
yes.
up.
Okay, first finding of facts is 58 Langford Road. Eric Peterson, Peterson Design Group, agent.
Okay, shall I start?
Oh, I have a different, you have.
I got
you
58.
have your finding, 2 copies of yours.
I got 58 Langsford, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so let me start. So,
I'm confused. I don't have,
sorry,
No, you have, I don't know what you have.
you have something else.
Have you?
weren't they weren't distributed, in other words?
No.
No.
No,
Well, I haven't
not
seen
yet.
the final, that's all on these, so,
They
Oh,
were-
yeah.
They were emailed out to everyone.
Yeah, April sent out the final today.
okay.
So this is a finding of fact for 58 Langsford Road, LLC. Following site plan reviews pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on the 15th of June 2022, 19th of October 2022, and the 2nd of November 2022, and a public hearing held on the 2nd of November 2022, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of fact and conclusions and renders the following decision subject to the conditions enumerated below. Findings of fact are as follows. The owner of record is 58 Langsford Road. Is the sound still on? Okay. 58 Langsford Road LLC with mailing address of 220 Boylston Street, Unit 1518, Boston, Massachusetts, 02116. The applicant is Peterson Design Group with a mailing address of 5 Nason Court, Suite 5, Kennebunk, Maine, 04043. In a letter dated the 17th of May, 2022, owner of record authorized the applicant to act as agent in this matter. The property has a street address of 58 Langsford Road, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046. The property is identified as map 29, block 1, lot 22 on the municipal tax assessor's maps. The property is located in the Cape Porpoise West Shoreland Protection and Resource Protection Zones. On behalf of owner, applicant demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a warranty deed for the property recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds Book 17204, pages 853 to 855 on March 28, 2016. Applicant confirmed that the required MDEP permit by rule for work has been requested. The property comprises approximately .15 acres, that's 6,624 square feet, per information provided by the applicant, and is therefore non-conforming. The existing residential property consists of one building which conforms neither to setback distances nor to lot size dimensions and coverage limits. In an application dated the 17th of May, 2022, and revised on 25th of August, 2022, and on the 5th of September, 2022, applicant proposes to demolish the existing residence and rebuild a new single residential structure. The new single residential structure will be located entirely within the 75-foot shoreline setback dimension. Under Section 8.3.B.1, expansion of non-conforming structures of the land use ordinance, applicant proposes to expand both the volume and interior square footage floor area of the new residence structure while also reducing overall lot coverage. The proposed expanded area and volume both remain within the maximum allowable one-time expansion of 30% each. The total existing interior surface area of the existing buildings is 1,738 square feet. The proposed interior surface area of the new building will be 1,939.5 square feet with an increase of 11.6%. The total existing interior volume is 12,344.84 cubic feet, and the proposed interior volume will be 15,899.39 cubic feet, an increase of 28.74%. The existing lot coverage is 3,392 square feet, which is 51.2%. The proposed lot coverage will be reduced to 2,362 square feet, which is 35.66%, making the lot coverage less nonconforming. This reduction has been achieved by creating a new 1.5-story house with a footprint smaller than the footprint of the existing house with attached exterior decks, and by reducing the size of new attached exterior decks. Though there is no view easement in the warranty deed for the property, the configuration and lot position of the new 1.5-story house seeks to preserve abutters' views as much as possible. The property is connected to public sewer and to public water supply. Applicant requested no submission or performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. The existing 83-foot-long P gravel driveway, which is 11 feet in width, also is non-conforming and will remain in use. The existing masonry wall and existing stone wall will remain in place. Because the property is entirely within the shoreland zone, owner agrees to avoid use of artificial fertilizers and synthetic pesticides on lawns and to maintain provisions intended to minimize bird strikes on windows. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 10.10.A of the Land Use Ordinance Guidelines for decisions, the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings which would otherwise compel denial. The proposed use meets the definition or specific requirements set forth in the Land Use Ordinance and will be in compliance with the applicable state or federal law, finding yes. The proposed use will not create fire safety hazards and will provide adequate access to the site or to the buildings on the site for emergency vehicles, finding yes. The proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards to motorists traveling on adjacent public streets and is adequate for the safety of occupants or users of the site and will not damage the value and diminish the usability of adjacent properties, finding yes. The provisions for buffers and on-site landscaping provide for adequate protection to neighboring properties from detrimental features of the development, finding yes. The proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the use and peaceful enjoyment of abutting property as a result of noise, vibrations, fumes, odor, dust, glare, or other cause, finding yes. The provisions for vehicular loading and unloading and parking and for vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety, finding yes. The proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the value of adjacent properties, which could be avoided by a reasonable modification of the plan. Finding yes. Comment: the architectural style of the proposed new 1.5-story house and attached decks compares well to others in the immediate neighborhood. The design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage and is in conformance with applicable flood hazard protection requirements. Finding yes. Adequate provision has been made for disposal of wastewater or solid waste and for the prevention of ground or surface water contamination, finding yes. Comments on the public sewer. Adequate provision has been made to control erosion or sedimentation, finding yes. Comment, erosion control measures are addressed in the cover letter for the application. Adequate provision has been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems on the site, finding yes. The proposed water supply will meet the demands of the proposed use or for fire protection purposes, finding yes. Comment, this on public water. Adequate provision has been made for the transportation, storage, and disposal of hazardous substances and materials as defined by state law, finding not applicable. The proposed use will not have an adverse impact on significant scenic vistas or on significant wildlife habitat, which could be avoided by a reasonable modification of the plan, finding yes. Comment, owner agrees to maintain provisions which minimize bird strikes on windows. The proposed use will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion, finding yes. Existing off-site ways and traffic fatalities can safely and conveniently, traffic facilities can safely and conveniently accommodate the increased traffic generated by the development as far away from the development as the effects of the development can be traced with reasonable accuracy, finding not applicable. Then, when a proposed development will be located within the shoreland zone or resource protection zone, in addition to the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance, Article 10, the townwide regulations in Article 6, the performance standards for specific activities and land uses in Article 7, approval of the development will also require the board makes positive findings based on information presented that the proposed use will maintain safe and healthful conditions, finding yes. Will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to the surface waters, finding yes. Comment, the owner agrees to avoid use of synthetic pesticides and artificial fertilizers on the property. Will adequately provide for the disposal of all wastewater, finding yes. Will not have an adverse an impact on spawning grounds, fish, aquatic life, birds, or other wildlife habitat, finding yes. Comment, because the property is in an area of significant bird activity, owner has agreed to incorporate measures to reduce bird strikes into the new design. All exterior windows shall utilize such measures, for example, exterior screens, bird-proof glass etching, visual striping. Okay. Will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland and coastal waters, finding yes. Will protect archaeological and historic resources as designated in the comprehensive plan, finding not applicable. Will avoid problems associated with floodplain development and use, finding yes. Is in conformance with the performance standards set forth in Section 5.6, erosion and sedimentation control of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance, finding yes. Any negative finding by the board means the application has been denied. The application is otherwise complete. Conclusions. Articles 10.10.a of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial, and as noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision, the site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 10.11 and 10.12.e. The applicant pursuant to 10.12.e shall notify the planning board prior to the transfer of rights to construct an approved project. 2, the applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Registry of Deeds before any permits may issue or before any construction activity may commence. The applicant shall also provide the town of Kennebunkport a copy of the MDEP permit by rule prior to commencement of any work. And 3rd, the applicant shall comply with all terms and conditions of the town of Kennebunkport ordinances as well as Maine DEP approvals. Dated 16th of November 2022.
I'd like to move that we approve that finding of facts.
I'll second.
Okay. Nina.
Okay. All right, so George,
I approve.
Approve.
I approve.
Approve.
Proof.
Okay, which brings us to Hidden Pond, finding of facts. So that's item 220904, and Nina is the,
Going to
Case
attempt to
manager.
read it, yes. Okay, this Kennebunkport Planning Board findings of fact and decision approval of application of the winterization of bungalows, spa buildings, and event barn at Hidden Pond Resort, Kennebunkport, Maine, to convert the back portion of a seasonal resort to year-round use. Following site plan review pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on October 5th, 2022, and a public hearing held on October 19th, 2022, and continued on November 2nd, 2022, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of fact and conclusions and renders the following decision subject to the conditions enumerated below. Findings of fact are as follows. The applicant is Hidden Pond LLC, hereinafter the applicant, with a mailing address of 2 Livewell Drive, Suite 203, Kennebunk, Maine, 04043. In a letter dated September 13, 2022, Hidden Pond LLC has authorized Sebago Techniques Incorporated to act as the agents for this matter. The property has a street address of 354 to 356 Goose Rocks Road, Kennebunkport, Maine. The property is identified as MAP 38, Block 001, Lot 8, and MAP 37, Block 3, Lot 3 on municipal tax assessor's maps. The property is located in the free enterprise zone. The existing and proposed use is for a motel, hotel, restaurant. The owner, Hidden Pond LLC, has demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a copy of a deed recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 15279, pages 8445 through 8454. The original planning board approval on June 6, 2007 was for a mobile home park. Subsequent planning board approvals of December 17, 2008, 2 of them, January 20th, 2010, November 17th, 2010, March 20th, 2013, October 15th, 2014, February 17th, 2016, November 20th, 2019, and November 4th, 2020, expanded the conditional use with restrictions. These included a conversion to a seasonal motel hotel, addition of Phase 2 bungalows, a seasonal motel, spa, and restaurant. Seasonal use was defined as operation only from May 1st to October 31st of each year. The approvals also included an expansion of the restaurant to a year-round use. In this application, the applicant proposes to convert existing Phase 2 cottages, spa buildings, and the event barn to year-round use so that the whole back portion of the complex is a full-season resort. The conversion includes winterization of the buildings and utilities. Applicant has submitted a site plan application dated September 15, 2022, an update of September 22, 2022, and supplemental information on October 13th, 24, 26, and 27, 2022. The applicant has requested an increase in the number of events that can occur on the property. Given the possibility of noise generation during the winter months, it has been determined that the current restriction of 30 calendar events per year can be increased by 15 events, including up to 4 outside or tented events during the period of November 1 to April 30th. The current restrictions on amplified outdoor sound remain the same. The applicant has stated that vegetative buffers and trees will be removed only if required to winterize or to replace utility lines. Areas where plants are removed will be revegetated with trees and shrubs. The applicant has provided a letter from the Kennebunkport Fire Department outlining the requirements for fire department access throughout the calendar year. The planning board recommends that outside fire pits be converted to propane to reduce air pollution and the possibility of fires spreading. The applicant has proposed no changes to the site lighting. The applicant has provided an erosion control plan for the winterization work. The applicant has not requested submission waivers and has presented a complete detailed application. Applicant has not requested any performance standard waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance, Guidelines for Decisions, the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings, which would otherwise compel denial. The proposed use meets the definition or specific requirements set forth in the Land Use Ordinance and will be in compliance with applicable state or federal laws. Finding, yes. The proposed use will not create fire safety hazards and will provide adequate access to the site or to the buildings on the site for emergency vehicles. Finding, yes. Note, the conditions stated in the Kennebunkport Fire Chief's letter of 10/24/22 will be implemented. The applicant will keep the road sufficiently cleared all year so that Kennebunkport's largest fire truck has access to all parts of the resort. This includes snow plowing wider than one pass through with a plow. In addition, all fire alarms and sprinkler systems must be operational whether the resort is in use or not, and there must be access to all buildings. A quarterly sprinkler test and annual testing of fire extinguishers will be performed each year. Additionally, it is recommended the fire pits be converted to propane. The proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards to motorists traveling on adjacent public streets and is adequate for the safety of occupants or users of the site and will not damage the value and diminish the usability of adjacent properties. Finding, yes. The provisions for buffers and on-site landscaping provide for adequate protection to neighboring properties from detrimental features of the development. Finding, yes. Note, it is recommended that for events conducted outdoors, applicants should provide sound buffers, sound barriers for the duration of each event in order to minimize impact of the event on abutters. Applicant shall assess the sound level at property limits as a first step in determining the extent of sound attenuation needed. The proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the use and peaceful enjoyment of abutting property as a result of noise, vibrations, fumes, odor, dust, glare, or other cause. Finding, yes. Note, any blasting will be performed in accordance with town's blasting ordinance. The provisions for vehicular loading and unloading and parking and for vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety. Finding, yes. The proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the value of adjacent properties, which could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan. Finding, yes. The design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage and is in conformance with applicable flood hazard protection requirements. Finding, yes. Adequate provision has been made for disposal of wastewater and solid waste and for prevention of ground or surface water contamination. Finding, yes. Adequate provision has been made to control erosion of sedimentation. Finding, yes. Note, an erosion control plan has been submitted. Adequate provision has been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems on the site. Finding, yes. The proposed water supply will meet the demands of the proposed use for fire protection purposes. Finding, yes. Adequate provision has been made for the transportation, storage, and disposal of hazardous substances and materials as defined by state laws. Not applicable. The proposed use will not have an adverse effect on significant scenic vistas or on significant wildlife habitat, or will have such an impact that it could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan. Finding, yes. Note, trees and other vegetation will only be removed to winterize utility lines in areas where such removal has occurred will be replanted. The proposed use will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion. Yes. Existing off-site ways and traffic facilities can safely and conveniently accommodate the increased traffic generated by the development as far away from the development as the effects of the development can be traced with reasonable accuracy. Finding, yes. Conclusions. Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial, and as noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision, the site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 10.11 and 1012E. This approval is subject to all reference findings of fact which are herein incorporated by reference and the foregoing findings and conclusions. The applicant is restricted to 15 events between November 1st and April 30th of any year. There will be a limit of 4 outdoor events during this period. The applicant will maintain the roads all year round, sufficiently cleared so that Kennebunkport's largest fire truck has access to all parts of the resort. In addition, all fire alarms and sprinkler systems must be operational whether the resort is in use or not, and access to all buildings kept clear. A quarterly sprinkler test and an annual testing of fire extinguishers must be performed each year. The applicant pursuant to 1012E shall notify the planning board prior to the transfer of rights to construct an approved project. The applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Registry of Deeds before any permit may issue or before any construction activity may commence. The town shall comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances. Dated November 16, 2022.
Okay.
I move to accept the findings of fact.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I approve.
Approve.
Approved.
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 Okay. That brings us to one final, and we're going to have it read from this position since it's Scott. But anyway, this is 52 Wild District Road, and I'm going to read it since Scott isn't here. This is a site plan application of Jonathan and Monica Noyes, represented by James Logan of Longview Partners, for 52 Wilds District Road, Kennebunkport, Maine, a private access driveway to proposed lots. An application dated September 6th, 2022, for site plan approval for a private access door to proposed lots. Following a site plan review held October 19th, 2022, a public hearing on November 2nd, 2022, Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings, conclusions, and renders the following decisions. 1. The owners of the property are Jonathan and Monica Noyes, who have an address of 52 Wilds District Road, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046, in a letter to Warner Gilliam dated June 27th, 2022, and updated October 24th, 2022, Jonathan Noyes, owner, has authorized James Logan of Longview Partners as authorized agent for this matter. Let me sign.
No,
Not yet.
we signed it, so.
We have a, April is the notary also.
I was going to grab one. Right.
Yeah. Okay, anyway. Property has a street address of 52 Wilds District Road, Kennebunkport, Maine. Property is located in the village residential zone. The owners, Jonathan and Monica Noyes, have demonstrated legal interest in the property, providing a copy of the warranty deed recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 6708, page 014, dated September 3rd, 93, received/recorded September 9th, 1993. 5. The premises are comprised of 10.37 acres, more or less, of land and a single-family residence. Property is identified as map 9, block 4, lot 26A on the municipal assessor's map. In an application dated September 6th, the applicant, of 2022, the applicant proposes to construct a 650-foot private access drive, excuse me for a second. There's that one. And
We just did this.
okay, that's what Ralph's interested in, I think. So, okay. A 650-foot private access road with hammerhead at the end. Proposed name of the road is Echo Ledge Lane, pending approval by the town's 911 addressing officer. The proposed road will be from 16 to 18 feet wide, but is not centered within the right-of-way, which is a pre-existing non-conformance with the requirements of the land use ordinance. Proposed road will service 3 single-family dwelling units for proposed gift lots to family members. 10, the applicant has requested no submission waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. 11, applicant has requested no performance waivers from the requirements. Looks like the same statement twice. Okay. 12, pursuant to the requirements of Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance, Guidelines for Decisions, the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings, which would otherwise compel denial. A, the proposed use meets the definition or specific requirements set forth in the land use ordinance and will be in compliance with all applicable state and federal law or federal laws, finding yes. B, proposed use will not create fire safety hazards and will provide adequate access to the site or the buildings of the site for emergency vehicles. Kennebunkport Fire Chief John Everett, in a letter to the owner John Noyes dated 5/25/22, stated that he was satisfied with the width of the road and the hammerhead turnaround was sufficient for the fire department vehicles to use, with the understanding on a private road that access is maintained year-round, including snow removal, removing encroaching growth and surface repair. Finding yes. C, the proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards. Finding NA. D, provisions for buffers and on-site landscaping provide for adequate protection of neighboring properties. Finding yes. E, proposed use will not have significant detrimental effect to the use and peaceful enjoyment of abutting properties. Finding yes. F, the provisions for vehicular loading and unloading and parking and for vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto public streets will not create hazards to safety. Finding yes. G, proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the value of adjacent properties. Finding yes. The design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage and is in conformance with applicable flood hazard protection requirements. Finding yes. I, adequate provision has been made for disposal of wastewater and solid waste for the prevention of ground or surface water contamination. Finding yes. J, adequate provision has been made for control, erosion, or sedimentation. Finding yes. K, adequate provision has been made to handle stormwater runoff or drainage from problems from the site. Finding yes. L, the proposed water supply will meet the demands of proposed for use for fire proportions. Use for fire protection purposes. Finding NA, that's town water. M, adequate provision has been made for transportation, storage, disposal of hazardous substances. Finding NA. N, proposed use will not have adverse effects on significant vistas of significant wildlife habitat. Finding yes. O, the proposed use will not cause unreasonable headway or public road congesting. Finding yes. P, existing off-site ways and traffic facilities can safely, conveniently accommodate increased traffic generated by this development. Finding yes. Any negative finding of the board means the application has been denied, the application is otherwise complete. Conclusions. Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve the site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial, and as noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision. The site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 1011 and 1012E. The applicant pursuant to 1012E shall notify the planning board prior to transfer of rights to construct an approved project. No assignment or transfer of rights to construct an approved project is valid without prior review and approval of the planning board of a new performance guarantee, or by the planning board of a new performance guarantee to ensure that the assignee or transferee has the financial capacity to undertake or complete the project. 2, the applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the form of a copy thereof attested by the Register of Deeds before the permits may issue or before any construction may commence. Dated, what's the date?
16th of November.
11/16/2022, which was not written on this. Kennebunkport Planning Board. So there's one, what's the date on this one?
I thought I signed before. I never signed one.
Okay. So, I hear a motion. How about,
I would move to approve those minutes as read.
Second.
okay.
That was actually not minutes, it was finding of facts, right?
Findings of facts, but yes. Okay.
Thank you. Approved.
George,
Approved.
Larry,
Approve.
Tom, approved.
Yes, approved.
Okay, and I'll take one more motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're done.